Hey guys, I hope you're well and welcome back to the second video in our positional prowess series. This time we'll be looking at the bishop pair and how to utilize tactics to your advantage. So I hope you enjoyed the content and let's get straight into the video. So the following position arose in a game from Dortmund 2013 between Wang and Fabiano Caruana. The following position was reached with Wang having the bishop pair, but you can see the bishops aren't particularly that good since they're blocked off by black's pawn on c6 and the one on c1 doesn't have too much prospect just yet. However, this is where we see the long-term potential of the bishop pair coming into play by Wang utilizing a really nice tactic to open things up. He plays the move knight to d5 here, hitting the queen, and he's also hitting the bishop on e7. The idea is that if Fabi takes it, then he will take back on d5, hitting the knight. If the knight moves, then there's always the move pawn to d6 to fork the queen and bishop and win the piece back, in the process opening up our bishop on g2. The game continued knight to g5, and here white can play the move pawn to d6, however black would take it, and after white recaptures on d6, black would take on h3, forcing us to give up our bishop pair on h3. And this wouldn't be what we wanted as white to achieve. So instead, we can play the move pawn to h4, preserving our bishop on g2 and defending the pawn on h3. The idea is that the knight doesn't have too many squares to go to. If it retreats to h7, then we do push the pawn to d6, and if the knight tries to go to e4, then we can take it, and after knight recaptures, there's always the move queen to a4 check, picking up the knight on e4 using this tactic. And of course, afterwards we'll end up with a very strong extra pawn in the center. Therefore, after the move pawn to h4, black played queen to d6, white captures on g5, bishop takes g5, but now we can see that in a few moves, we have this passed pawn on d5 and this bishop on g2 has improved a little bit. Here white plays the move pawn to b3 to try and improve the dark squared bishop. So we want to bring our bishops to the most active diagonals we can. So here Wang wants to bring it to a3. Knight goes to d7 and white plays the move pawn to a4. Castles, and here Wang plays rook to a2. So instead of bringing the bishop to b2, he wants to bring the bishop to a3 with an extra tempo. So this is very important, that you want to bring the bishops to the most active squares, and you also, if you can, bring pieces out with extra tempi. Knight goes to c5, the bishop comes to a3 pinning. Bishop e7, we have rook c2, rook to c8, we have queen e2, queen b6 unpinning. We have rook c1, applying more and more pressure on this knight on c5. Bishop to d6. We have queen to g4 now, attacking the rook on the c8 square and applying just a lot of pressure on black's position. Queen goes to a7. So all black's pieces are always stuck in pins and they can't really move. So now we switch to a different plan. Here we can see the h-files open up. So whenever the h-files open up like this, we can often shift our king to the g2 square and utilize our major pieces shifting towards the h-file. So bishop goes to f3, pawn goes to b6, king goes to g2, rook fe8. So black is really trying to untangle here, but it's very difficult to do so because he can't play f5 because the pawn on g6 is hanging, and maybe he's hinting at the move pawn to e4. Rook h1, so now we want to play queen h3. Queen e7 was played, so now black is maybe hinting at the move pawn to e4, or maybe moving the knight back to trade off some pieces. Anyway, white just plays the move pawn to e4. So there's no need to allow any counterplay, we just want to stop as much as we can. Knight goes to d7, and now we have the threat of queen h3 coming. First white captures on c8, rook takes c8, and now white just plays queen h3, f5 was played, There's not much else black can play here since the threat of queen h8 is very hard to stop. And now the simplest win for white is just to take on d6, queen takes, and then play the move queen to h8 check, winning the rook on c8. Therefore, black decided to resign here. So as you can see, sometimes your bishops don't start out as the best pieces, but as long as there's potential for the position to open up, then there's also potential for your pieces to be a lot more effective later in the game. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something from it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.